Welcome to the Serene-ish podcast. We're two friends trying for serenity, but life happens.
I'm Larissa.
And I'm Brenda.
And we're glad you're here.
Each week we share honest conversations about navigating everyday life, faith, relationships, soul care, and all the messy in-betweens.
You'll hear reflections, a little laughter, and hopefully encouragement to find peace in your own journey, even if it's just serene-ish.
Well, hello. Welcome, everyone. I am really looking forward to this conversation with Larissa. And so this is going to be not so much like conversation as Larissa. I'm going to be asking you some questions because you had a very special event that I loved hearing about. And I think it's be really, really fun for everyone else to hear about that. So, but before we dive into what that event was about, I do have a question for you.
Okay, go.
When you're going to a cookout, what is one food item that you are just really hoping makes an appearance? And what is one food item that you are praying all the prayers does not make an appearance at the cookout?
Okay, I have strong feelings about this, so I love the question. For cookout, I feel like it wouldn't be a real cookout without really good hamburgers. Like, I am a huge fan of burgers, so I just need that. That's like easy to grill, and you get all the fixings. So for sure, burgers.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
How do you take your meat patty? Medium well, medium rare, well done.
Medium rare for sure. If it's well done, I'm sad and a little dismayed at whoever cooked it. It's upsetting. That is upsetting to me.
Right? Don't you need a little bit of, juice in the meat when you're
juices.
eating?
It just needs to be.
You need some of that.
It needs to be a little bit pink, just on the edge, and with you can taste the beef. Anyway,
absolutely. Yeah. Okay. We're vibing. Go for it.
And then what I don't love, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of literally any salad, and I put this in quotes, salad with mayonnaise or I don't know if folks do this where you are, but salads that are fruit but with marshmallow goo.
Oh no.
Okay, so anything like that with creamy goo gunk. I'm not a huge mayonnaise fan. So if there's potato salad, maybe a hint of mayonnaise, but not slopped in there. That's kind of gross to me. That's it. How about you?
Yeah. No, I hear you. Okay, so for me, the cookout, what I hope makes an appearance is meat with juice in it. That's basically it. I just want, if we're going to have a steaks, medium rare. If we're going to have burgers, medium rare. Not a crazy fan of chicken, but we're going to have chicken. I want some, maybe give me an option of some thighs or the brown meat, something like that, right? Yeah. So that would be, I would really like to have some good baked beans. Oh. That would be awesome. Some really good baked beans. So just the sweetness of it. You don't eat it a lot, so it's a treat to be able to have that. Okay, and then what I really hope doesn't make an appearance, I have a couple of things. One is anything with nuts in it. Oh. I don't like nuts, and it's not an allergy thing. It's just a texture or flavor thing. So don't put nuts in the brownies. Don't, so
or salad with nuts.
No, or thanks. Salad with nuts in there, because then I'm spending all my time picking out the nuts. But like what you said too, anything that has the fruit and marshmallows. Okay, back in my day, there used to be this, and I was a little child. They would make these Jell-O molds. Ew. And it was Jell-O with shredded carrots in it, or vegetables, or or like you said, the marshmallow. I don't know what they were doing in the 70s. Yeah. Coming off the 60s, maybe they were still recuperating. I don't know, but they were putting this stuff together, and I can't.
I feel I've seen those, at parties or potlucks, Jell-O and fruit. But what vegetables? You mean carrots?
Yes,
that's
shredded
weird.
Carrots.
No,
and
no
I think this might be. This is probably a core memory. Something happened around this that I remember. This I'm visualizing it and hating the fact that I was going to have to eat this. Like I was just going to have to eat this.
Ew.
The two should never be in the same room together.
Well, see, I don't
Jell-O
even like
needs to be
Jell-O.
Jell-O.
I don't even like Jell-O. So you're like ruining a multitude of things in one big situation that I am not a fan of.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, wait. Next time we see each other in person, I take pride in my sous vide steak. Like we sous vide it, so slow, I don't know, like in a hot water bath, basically. Okay. And then we pan sear it, and it always comes out like perfect pink. You can control the exact temperature so you don't get like the overcooked situation. Mm-hmm. I'll do that for you.
Yes, thank you. I would love that. Now, my husband, on the other hand, he takes all of his meat like it's like beef jerky. He wants it medium well. He wants everything like I'm trying to tell him it's already dead. He's like, I'm just making sure. Ooh. That's his motto.
Okay. We'll give him those
sides. Yeah. Give him the little, it's been there too long. Give me some of the pink and the juices. I'm a happy girl. Happy girl. Well, okay, so there's a reason why I wanted to start with that question, because part of this celebration that you're gonna share about, there was food involved there, right? And so I just kept thinking about like just wondering like what was the food that you had there. So I want me to just kind of update our listeners what we're going to be talking about. Larissa had been sharing with me about this wonderful gathering that she and her family were a part of, and it was celebrating another family's new land ownership and her organization's role in that. So today, Larissa and I are going to talk about, and now I'm going to say some terms here, and I may not get it correct, but I'm going to make it an effort, and Larissa will correct me. So the name of the organization is called Inoanāiwi. No, let me choose. I'm going to get it. Inoanāiwi. Inoanāiwi. Did I get it?
Yes, you got it.
Okay. You say it in the more wonderful way.
Yeah, I know. It's a hard word. Inoanāiwi.
Inoanāiwi. Inoanāiwi. So that's the name of the organization that she and Steve co-founded, along with another couple as well, correct? And it's a nonprofit that is working to restore ancestral land to Native Hawaiian families. Now, just to understand why this work actually really, really matters, we got to step back in time just a little bit. Before Western influence, Hawaiians managed their land communally through this sacred bond between people and land. And then through let me see if I can get this one right, Mahele. Did I get it? Okay. Through the Mahele and the American annexation, Native Hawaiians lost, and this really shocked me, 90% of that land. Mm-hmm. I mean, that blew me away when I read that. They lost 90% of that land. And so today, many are still lacking any legal titles or home ownership. So this is where the organization and other programs like this and legal advocacy networks are stepping in to help reclaim the space and their story and their sovereignty within the islands. And so I know that you guys are new to this with the organization. It's just in its like real starting stages, but this was a wonderful celebration because this was the first family that you were able to take from start to finish in land ownership. So I just wanted us to really have a good conversation about this and just, share this with everyone. So before we could jump into that, both of us are homeowners. Mm-hmm. And so I thought we just talk just a little bit about like, what was the journey like for you when it came to like land and home ownership? Things like, what struggles, what were the joys, getting you to that point of owning your home? Like what did that feel like to get to that point?
Right. Yeah, I know. For me, that was a great question to kind of think about. Both Steve and I come from families where our parents owned the homes that they were in. And, of course, there's a history to that. And so I'm always curious, like, who are the first folks in a family line to be able to purchase a home? Because that's a huge deal, right? That's a huge shift from not owning to owning. Right. But I think for Steve and I, like I said, we were raised in homes that our families had the privileges of purchasing and owning. Mm-hmm. So we never were raised with any instability. we had a fair amount of generational wealth. So by the time we were married and starting to think about, like land and homes ourselves, honestly, we were in a place, I think as many like 20-year-olds or, early 20s folks are in, like we needed assistance from our parents. And so our parents, both Steve's parents and my parents, said like, hey, if you guys want to purchase a home, we are able to, bring in X amount of money to give you guys a loan. And that was a huge gift, because without that, I don't think this is back in like 2019. So right, the housing market is so different now than it used to be.
Oh yeah.
So we could all talk about that too. But it allowed us the ability, with our savings plus the gifts from our parents, we were able to have enough for a down payment, right? Down payments are generally the hardest part of qualifying for a loan. We were also in the Obama era, where like new home ownership there was federal money available for folks to do that. There were certain loans that we qualified for as new homeowners. So all that stuff to say, it was a really big deal. It was a stretch for us. We were like, shoring up as much savings as we could. But I think in the end, we were able to buy our first home, which was in Los Angeles. And at that time, we were college campus ministers at USC. And so our priority was the geography of living next to campus.
Right.
And having a home that could host ministry-related community gatherings. So those were the two main things. It wasn't really about like what looks great, what's like move-in ready. So we ended up buying a home that was like ancient. It was like 120 years old, I think.
Oh my
and
gosh.
It was kind of falling apart. It needed so much love and care. But for us, it was such a gift to be able to like use our home to bless, the college kids that we were ministering to. And that was the first place we had our oldest son. So it was a really big deal. Yeah.
The process of it, did you guys find it like smooth and like straightforward? Did you feel like, how much stress was in there? Was it like learning all the things? I mean, because you came from families who were homeowners, but now for you, did you feel confident in navigating the system? Or
confident? No, but I think that for Steve and I both, we had college educations. We felt pretty well resourced by our parents and also the internet, and also friends of ours who had done that journey ahead of us. So I think we had a fair amount of support available. But no, it did feel stressful. It did feel stressful to like learn a whole system and a whole language. And like, that fear of like, I don't know what I don't know. So like, you kind of just have anxiety, like, are we being screwed over? Are we making terrible decisions? Who knows? But I think especially partnered with Steve, he takes those kinds of things on as like fun, exciting challenges. So even though he might feel like he's in unfamiliar territory, that was a gift to me, because I think he took on the brunt of like, okay, how do we find a good real estate agent? What do we need to know about getting a loan and all those things? So he ended up being like he took a lot of the work on.
Oh man.
But,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, for us, okay, so both of us, for Gerson and I, our parents were homeowners, but it looked very different. So his parents were homeowners, and they lived here in the US, but the home that they owned was his childhood home in El Salvador.
Oh, yeah.
So they had not navigated anything here. Here in the US, they were renting a home. And then for my parents, they weren't homeowners until I was already married when they became homeowners. And so where I grew up was in a home that we rented. So I never knew anything about like any of that process or whatnot. Their parents, my grandparents, on my dad's side, they so he grew up in a home that they owned, so he had that experience, but I didn't have that experience. And so for Gerson and I, when we bought our first home, there was assistance because he was a teacher at the time, so we were able to take advantage of some things. And we had to start with, and this is when I think it was more feasible to do that. I don't know if that's actually a thing anymore, but at least at that point we bought a condo. And the plan was we stayed there for a few years and let the equity build, and then we sold the condo and we used that to get into a house. And it was a much older house, like you were saying. I think it was like not as old as what you were talking about. It was like in the 1950s or something. It was built, and small house, a lot of property on it, but a small house. We had a septic tank, which was interesting when that went south. That was a whole adventure. So we did that, and we stayed there, and again we built equity on that, and then we sold that, and then we bought the house that we're in now, and this is where we've been. So it just took like some time and building, but we also came from families who could not assist us, and so we had to really it was pull it together, and then they couldn't assist us in even like understanding how the system worked either, because by that point my dad had already passed away and my mom didn't really know much about things about that particular thing. And then my in-laws, they had never done any purchasing here in the States, so they didn't really understand too much how that worked. So we felt really overwhelmed, having exactly like you said, wondering at every moment. You just feel so vulnerable because you are relying on your real estate agent, the loan officer, like all these things, and you're just putting, it feels like your life in their hands because you're about to sign paperwork that is a contract for so many years, and they're talking about a lot of money and a home you're going into, and now you're responsible. I can't call the landlord to tell them that the dishwasher is leaking or whatever, like it's all on us. And so it was just really overwhelming, and went through this process 3 times. And I always tell people, I feel like buying like a home or land, like it's such a major life thing. It's a joy once it's done, but in the process I kind of wonder if it takes some months off of your life. Like the amount of stress that you feel. So just to be able to find people that you can really trust is so important. So, and the reason why I wanted us to share some of our experiences and our stories is because creating a space where people can feel safe in this process and that they can trust, because you understand all of the fears and the angst that goes with this, is also a part of what I'm thinking you guys do as an organization for people who are going through this process. And so I think that means this, the world. So okay, let's talk about the name that I have been practicing and will one day be able to let it just roll off my tongue. But can you share what the name means? Because I remember you shared the story with me, and it's such a beautiful story. So what does the name mean, and how does it reflect the heart of the mission for you guys?
Yeah, that's so good. The name Inoanāiwi, the literal meaning is let the bones rest. And just to give some context, we feel really deeply that a lot of the work that we're doing is restoring fractures and brokenness in a broken system, in generational fractures, in relational fractures. And what I mean by that is, for the Native Hawaiian community now and in the past, like you said in your intro, a key primary relationship is with land. And it's like land and elements of nature are part of the family for Native Hawaiians. It's like that deep. Like you think of like the land as your grandmother, or right. And so the fact that there have been historical injustices and fractures in the relationship between Native Hawaiians and land actually has disrupted a whole entire system of community and relationships. And so as we've been working on, like restoring the relationship that Native Hawaiians can have with land and one another and their culture, we felt like the heartbeat of what we're doing really is healing work. And so as we were kind of describing that to some of our elders, there's a Native Hawaiian elder who's been really formative, I think, spiritually and culturally to the work that we're doing. And he was thinking and meditating on what's happening here in Inoanāiwi and in the Native Hawaiian community. And he came up with the name. And for him, it felt like, it really resonated, this idea of what is it like when we can actually have the bones of our ancestors and the bones of our future generations all be in the place that we are, and the kind of power and strengthening that can happen when that is available to Native Hawaiians. And there's like so many other layers to that, because even in some of the land, in some of the history of Native Hawaiians not being able to have land or be on their land, that it's been actually like a huge injustice and sadness and grief for them that they can't bury the bones of their ancestors, actual literal bones. And I think some of what we're doing is like restoring like literally a place where people can do that, to practice their culture, for Native Hawaiians to just be Hawaiian. And there's almost, many people will say like, you cannot be Hawaiian without your land. There's like that actually.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I think that's some of the backstory to the name and what it means for us to be restoring and addressing some of the injustices that we see.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you kind of explained a little bit more about when we talk about a relationship with the land, that strong connection with the land, because I wonder sometimes, like, as in other cultures, the thinking could be, well, I own my home, I own the land here, I have a connection with this land too. But what you're talking about is something very different than the relationship that I have with the land that my home is on. Like, there's something very ancestral about what it is that you're talking, and communal. And just in the time that I've known you and what I've been able to learn about the culture there in Hawaii, there's just such a respect for the land and for creation, and it's such a part of this people's way of like just breathing, and and the way you engage with the land. As you were sharing the story, it reminded me of when you talk about the bones being being buried there. And I had to look it up really quick. I think this is in Exodus, where it says Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for Joseph had made the Israelites solemnly swear to do it, saying, "I will surely hold you accountable, so make sure you bring my bones from here with you." There's something even very scriptural about the bones like being returned to the place of birth, and that's where he wanted to be buried. So I just thought that was so interesting that's what you guys were, that's what you were talking about there. Okay, so what is it that prompted you guys to found this organization? Was there something that catapulted you? Because you've seen this happening. I mean, you grew up here. So what was the tipping point that made you say, like, we have to do something about this?
Right. Yeah, I think for Steve and I think our journeys to this work have been really different. And then, of course, our Native Hawaiian friends who are part of founding the organization, their journey is, their own. And so I'll describe mine a little bit. Yeah, I grew up here in Hawaii, and then lived in California for 15 years. And then we moved our family back here to Hawaii. And so in the last 5 years or so, we have been involved in real estate in different ways. So I have my real estate license. Steve is a loan officer, so he helps do what you were talking about, get people loans and financing for their homes. And in our work, and even as I was studying to get my license here, a huge requirement for like getting my license was learning about the Hawaiian context, right? The place that we're in and the system of land ownership and what exists here in Hawaii, like where that is from and the context and how that kind of got formed.
Okay, wait. So that was required.
Yeah.
For you to get your license there to learn that history.
Right. But let me put a caveat. So it was like,
Okay.
you read a few paragraphs about things like you said, the Great Mahele, or Hawaiians losing 90% of their land over time. And the reality now that there are now more Native Hawaiians living not in Hawaii than in Hawaii. Not because they want to, but because they cannot afford land. Okay. So for my real estate license, I had to read a couple paragraphs on these great injustices and great griefs. And so for me, I was like, what? Like, let me dig more into that. So I made it my personal project. It just kind of felt like this weird, like, overview of something that has so much bearing on the reality that we're in now. And so I would say that was an element of learning and listening more. We are also in relationship with, certain Native Hawaiian friends who have really been generous to share with us what their experiences are here in Hawaii, including the grievousness of, this is our homeland. This is land that generations of our culture has stewarded, and yet folks are having to move to like Idaho and Washington and Las Vegas because we can't afford land anymore. And, there's so many layers of poverty and education and, different elements that kind of have led to that reality. But for me, it was learning about more of those things, listening to our Native Hawaiian friends. And so Steve and I this is on our own, as we were talking about this and talking about our work in real estate, we started to just have these conversations like, what can we do? What can we do about this? And I think a lot of folks who are in any activism work or justice related work are going to have some element of that, right? Like, we see something, we're not, we can feel viscerally how wrong it is.
Yeah.
And we're now thinking about like, what's my role in this, right? Like, how do I reverse something, or how do I address injustices that I feel or see?
Right.
So it kind of came out of that, but we didn't know. We didn't have any answers. We're like, we don't know, how would we change an entire system? How would we change an entire multi-generational thing that's happening, right? With so many different complicated dynamics that are all feeding into one another. So one day we got an email from a friend who said, his name is Doug, and he said, hey, I'm involved in a movement that's trying to raise money for down payments for families who could not afford homes on their own or can't afford down payments. And would you like to hear about the work that we're doing? I think you might be interested because of your work in real estate. And so immediately we're like, yeah. And so we got connected with Doug and some of his work with Green Line Housing Foundation that you are familiar with. And it was through the work of that organization and the incredible people there that we realized, yes, the huge hurdle and the big barrier are down payments. And that is the same for folks in Hawaii. So we started to imagine, what if we could raise money for down payments for Native Hawaiians specifically to buy land? And what if we could tithe our time, use our time, and volunteer that, and, like pro bono work in that, and use our expertise in real estate to assist with that. So that's kind of my long story, but that's how
Wow.
we kind of got to the idea. It wasn't ours to begin with. It was, yeah, we're so grateful that it intersected with work that other people are doing. And yeah, so
Wow.
it started with that little seed of a weird idea, like, can we raise money for one family that's Native
Yeah.
Hawaiian here to afford Hawaiian land, which that's an expensive, tall order.
Yeah.
It ended up being, we raised about 127,000, I think is what we raised, for
Wow.
like our first initial pilot project. And the first family ended up being able to purchase not just a home, but a farm of 10 acres on the Big Island. But it took 2 years of us like pitching this idea to literally everybody we knew, right? Folks who believed in the work that we're doing, folks who had never heard about us. We had tons of conversations inviting folks into this vision. And it ended up being this incredible journey of 2 years of, people giving like $10 donations, and then organizations hearing about what we're doing who gave like $20,000. So it's kind of like this whole spectrum of
Right.
people really believing in generosity and in
Mm-hmm.
resourcing a community. Yeah, so that's what
Wow.
ended up happening.
So okay, I know you said that it started with having this little weird idea, could we raise
Mm-hmm.
money for this? But I would wonder if it started even before that, because you talked about the things that you were noticing,
Mm-hmm.
and you guys allowed yourself to I've been calling this like divine presence.
Mm.
You noticed it, and then you held what it was that you noticed. You didn't race past the feeling that you were getting in your gut. And so,
Yeah.
when people talk about getting involved in social justice, and it's such a broad spectrum there of what that looks like, and I can't do all the things, and I want to encourage people, well, what's the thing that's burning in your
Mm.
heart, right? And
Right.
and just practice some noticing, and then holding what it is that you're noticing, and then in that holding of what you're noticing, staying aware for that spot where God is going to open up a space right there for you to go and explore, which is exactly
Yeah.
what happened for you guys. But it started with you being willing to notice and to hold what it was that you were noticing and to feel that. And so, and I love that about you, because I've noticed that you do that. Like, you're very much aware of the things around you, and you're not afraid to hold that. So, okay, why is restoring Native Hawaiians' connection to land so significant, and not just like
Mm-hmm.
illegally, but more like spiritually and culturally? And here's kind of where this is coming from, because you were talking about how there are so many Native Hawaiians that are having to leave the islands and come, and because they can't, it's just too expensive for home ownership or land ownership there, so they're coming over and in places like Idaho and whatnot and buying things there. So if I just play the other side of
Mm-hmm.
this, someone could say, well, you know what, I'm Native Californian, and I can't afford a house over here, so I'm having to move to Tennessee to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
Like, isn't that the same thing? So while I can get what maybe they are thinking, sometimes that those kinds of questioning comes with some blind spots. So help
Mm-hmm.
us with some of those blind spots. Why is this important? Not just like a legally thing, but a spiritual and cultural type of
Right.
understanding.
Right. That's such a great question. And yeah, I think there's a lot of nuance to how I think about it. I think a huge part of it is our indigenous communities. And by that, I mean Native Hawaiians and other indigenous communities around the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I think indigenous communities have long histories of deeds done in relationship to land and
Mm-hmm.
stewardship of land that
Mm-hmm.
is holistic, healthy for the environment,
Mm.
sustainable, good for community, not just the individual, not
Mm-hmm.
seeing land and resources as a commodity, but as, right, like a whole
Yeah.
space to be reciprocal. So, yes, I would argue on some level, and I'm not native or I'm not an indigenous woman. I'm Chinese. My family settled here in Hawaii. So I say that with, I think, I don't know. yeah, I don't have a ton to like gain by believing this, but I really deeply believe that here in Hawaii, Native Hawaiians are absolutely the best stewards because of the cultural and historical faithfulness to stewarding land that has existed. They have a ton of wisdom with how to treat the land, how to work the land, how to farm the land, and how to do that to the benefit of the whole community. And so I think that's one really significant and unique element that kind of answers some of what you're asking. I think another thing too is not many people know this, but Native Hawaiian culture has been on the brink of being erased at different points in history. So I'll give it one example. Back in like the 60s or 70s, it became illegal for a while to teach Native Hawaiian language. Okay, that's just one element of culture. Wow. But can you imagine an entire culture being banned from their language? Okay, that creates all kinds of fractures with cultural practices. That creates all kinds of generational barriers between elders and the younger generation, right? The elders who can only speak Native Hawaiian, and then the younger ones who can only speak English. All these youngsters in schools were like beaten for speaking their home language. So I give that as a very specific example of Native Hawaiian culture I feel like needs to be protected in a really concerted way. And it has been for the last, I don't know, 20 or 30 years. It's had a cultural resurgence. There have been many people and individuals and organizations, and legally, things have shifted so that it's actually upheld as something really vital and important. Yeah. But I think the land thing, like I was saying before, is so complicated that not everyone knows that it's a problem here and an injustice, or most people do. But no one knows how to fix it because it's so multifaceted. So I think that goes back to like, well, we're not trying to solve all the world's problems. But this feels, at least for Steve and I and some of our community here, it feels like a very key important thing for us to be doing with our time, with our money, with our knowledge. We want to see Native Hawaiian culture thrive, not just for our Native Hawaiian friends, but for all of us who benefit from being here on the land that we are. And Native Hawaiian like land and resources are not unlimited. So we need to take special care of it because they're like, these small little islands, not this like huge expansive landmass that if it like gets destroyed, we can move on, like next door to another state. That's just not possible here. So I think that makes it kind of feel different.
Man, I mean, when you talked about like people being punished if they were to speak their native language and what that does. I mean, that was done with so many indigenous people, First Nation people, were sent to special schools and you weren't allowed. You were horribly, horribly punished. The divide like you're sharing between what happens when you do something like that. So now there's a divide in generation. So now the elders cannot pass on the teachings and the history of their people. And so now there's like this generations that almost feel so disconnected and orphaned from their identity and who am I? And the land plays a huge part of that because that's where the people can come together. They can live, they can continue to share their history and their stories and their resources and all of those things. And they have such an understanding of the land. I think we would do well to listen and to learn. I don't know about you. I know that when we bought our house, there was not it was a commodity. It was, I mean, obviously it was a place that we knew we were going to raise our kids and we paid attention to like the area and things like that. But there was not this more organic connection to like where we were purchasing and what that was going to look like. I think as far as it went was that we wanted it to be a space that if we had gatherings in our home, that they could be gatherings and then our kids could have their own private spaces upstairs so that, they would be able to have their space. But it was very, home buying is very different, a very different mindset that is there. So you helped this family. You guys were able to raise this money. You've had donations coming in, some big ones from certain organizations, all the way to the person saying, "Hey, I got $10. I'll send it over." This is, where everyone's pitching in what they can. A couple years, maybe more, goes by. You guys are telling everyone about things and getting that support. I can't imagine how patient the family had to be through all of this. It finally happens. They've got the keys, they're on the land, and you guys get together and you're going to celebrate. You have this celebration. Talk to me about what was happening. What were you guys marking? What was being honored in this celebration? And like, who came? I know people came from pretty far to be a part of this. Like, what was that like? What did it feel like? Take us there.
So the initial family who received the grant and were able to purchase land, they are the ones who are helping us and co-founding the organization with us. And for them, they can barely put into words the significance of being on their homeland and being able to know with security and certainty that it's theirs, that the government doesn't own it, that somebody's not going to take it away from them. But for them to also know, like, it's something that they can pass down to their children. It's something that they can use to bless their community, to raise up future generations, but also practice farming and cultural practices that are really important. Okay. So for them, we've witnessed these really tender moments of like just emotional, I don't know, just something like that's deep and emotional for them. I think there's trauma getting healed. There's like restoration happening. It's pretty incredible to watch. But for this celebration, this family wanted to just host a big, very Native Hawaiian party. And so it was a big house party on their land. I feel like, gosh, maybe it was about 200 people. Yeah. It was friends, families, family members, neighbors, people that they had just met that week. So they're like, I mean, just...
Is that like a thing?
Yeah,
is that like a cultural thing? Like, hey.
I think they had just met the neighbors across the street like that same week. So it was more like, okay, we're neighbors and we would love for you to come and celebrate with us. But, it was just Native Hawaiian parties are... Food, music, and community are, I would say, like the big three things. And, I'm sure there's a version of that for most cultures, but it was a really big thing.
Tell me about the food. Tell me about the food. What kind of food?
So one family member wanted to gift them with all the food and all the food preparation. So that it was like a labor of love by one individual, and I'm sure they had help in the kitchen, right? Like, and other family members and other friends helping. But it was somebody wanted to donate that to the party. Other folks who are like professional level Hawaiian musicians like donated their live music playing. So it was this incredible... I saw some
video of that.
It was so fun. But the food, I mean, mostly Hawaiian food. So you get like, oh my gosh, lau lau and squid luau. I'm going to say all these things that most listeners won't know.
Squid.
But there was fish. Yeah, a lot of fish, like poke. So most people know what poke is, right? Raw fish. It was too much food, which too much here in Hawaii is like just enough. Like at a party, like you want too much and you want to be able to like have so much that everyone's stuffed, like, and has eaten like several times. Like you've gone back to the dessert table 5 times. Okay. But so much that there's like, towards the end of the party, everyone's like bagging it up together, like in Ziploc bags or containers or to-go things. And then you send guests home with food, right? And you make sure that the people who helped out gets like bags of stuff, of leftovers, and so much usually that you can like now feed the rest of the neighborhood for like the rest of the week.
Oh my
That's how it
goodness.
is.
Okay, so the cookout is
Yeah.
more than just about the day of the event. The cookout is
Yeah.
about food going home, spreading the love within your area. Like, so
Yeah.
you always go above and beyond
Yeah.
what you're actually going to be going to in that particular
Yeah.
event. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I
Oh my
think
gosh.
I feel like food and meals together in this kind of setting really is an expression of, or a celebration of abundance and generosity. Kind of like we've been gifted abundance and we experience generosity from the earth, from God, from community. And we're able to also now do that collectively in community. So I think that was a huge part of what we experienced at the gathering. Yeah, which
Yeah,
felt really
I ask
special.
about the food. I ask about the food because I've just found in life that has also been a way of me understanding a little bit more about different cultures, their connection with food. What does that look like at a gathering? What does that look like when you have, guests over? It just communicates so much because for so many cultures, food isn't just about a meal. It's such an intimate thing to be able to participate in, and so that's why I asked about that. But
Yeah.
so okay, so you guys had food, and I just learned something new because I didn't know that that's like the thing, like you above and beyond. So I just learned that. I love that. So you had the food, and you guys were honoring the fact that, and even just hearing how you could catch those moments of emotion with this family, and that you could sense that there's a healing that's happening for them as they are being reconnected with their
Yeah.
land.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, that was a huge part of it. And it really was also, they wanted to throw the party in a way that honored the folks who had been a part of giving this, giving donations, tithing time. I mean, their real estate agent was there, their loan officer, Steve, right? So every person there really had been a part of the journey in some ways. Not every person, many of the people were there. Doug and Sandy, who I mentioned Doug before, but he, because he had a significant hand in what was happening here, they were invited. They came from California. So it was also a way, I think before the meal, some of us shared about, the family shared the significance of being on their homeland now, and they expressed so much gratitude to everybody. But also we were able to collectively share about Inoanāiwi and how vital we feel like this work is, and how committed many of us are to seeing more families experience the same thing, and not just one, but future families. So yeah, that felt really special.
Yeah. So from this celebration, was there something that stood out to you that's giving you a glimpse of the future for the organization? Whether it's something that, like, did it refine any more what the hope is for you guys moving forward in this work?
So there was a moment, I think it was, we had shared about Inoanāiwi, shared about this family's journey to getting their home. And we were about to have one of the elders pray for the meal and bless the meal. But in that little moment before that happened, the two boys, so this family has two sons. They're they're young elementary kids. So maybe 6 and 7, or 6 and 8. But the two boys stood up, and their mom got on the microphone and said, the boys are gonna do their lineage chant, which in Native Hawaiian culture, this is in the Bible where you see entire intros of scripture where
Yes.
the father of so-and-so, the father of so-and-so, and you kind of get the lineage of David or the lineage of Jesus.
Right.
And you're like,
Right.
what's that all about?
Right.
That is actually, there's a parallel in Native Hawaiian culture to chant and know your family lineage, know the ancestors who came before you. And it's a way of telling the family story. It's a way of rooting yourself and future generations in a sense of belonging and place. Because I'm not Native Hawaiian, I'm sure there's so much more to it, but that's my understanding. So the boys, or Makaiva, the mom, she got up on the microphone and she said, the boys are going to chant their lineage and we invite you all to just stand up and bear witness to it. And so everyone stands up, all 200 people. And these two young boys are like, they've memorized their entire family lineage and they're chanting it. But something, I'm going to get emotional right now. Like there was something really sacred about that moment, because to me it signified the power that's in these young boys to be Native Hawaiian, to be like fully unapologetically Hawaiian on their land, and like somehow inviting their past ancestors and future ancestors into the celebration. That's what it felt like. It felt like all of these folks that they were naming, their grandfathers, their great grandparents and beyond, right? They're inviting them into this like whole healed, restored moment. It felt like, oh, this is why we're doing what we're doing, to experience this kind of restoration that feels really holy and sacred. You know what I mean?
Oh my goodness. I can't even imagine like being there in the space. Like, how did it impact everybody that was there, hearing these two boys chant this?
Yeah, same. I think folks who knew the significance of Hawaiians being on land that they owned were like, people were crying, especially some of the elders, grandparents, and that whole generation of aunts and uncles in that family and in the neighbors and friends. Many people were crying, and a lot of folks came up to us, Steve and I, with so much gratitude. And we were kind of like, I think a little disarmed, like, oh, we played a small part, but it wasn't just us, it was like a whole multitude of community. But I think it was really emotional for folks and really touching. Wow. And there were many folks who came up also and said, I want to be a part of this somehow. Here's my level of expertise, or here's what I do for work, or here's somebody I know who might be interested. So there is, I think, it's just a lot of resonance in the community. Like we want to see this expand and grow and happen for more families.
That is so encouraging. And it touches just that deep need for belonging. And when we talk about belonging, it's not just like, who are my friends, what's my friendship group. Like, this is something way deeper when we're talking about this kind of belonging. We see it in scripture that the lineage mattered. That was, it gave you a sense of identity. It gave you a sense of rooting you in the world in some way. It was part of the story because of all the personalities and those stories of our ancestors, as they are being repeated and shared, they help to shape and to form the people that we are. And so it is it's an honoring practice that we don't have a lot of, I don't think, in the United States. And I think there are those who definitely go and they try and find their ancestry and whatnot, and but it's really not the same. And so, man, that's amazing to be able to have witnessed that. We're going to switch gears in a minute. I want to talk about just a few things of how you help to sort of navigate and stay healthy through something like this, and starting a new organization, and also 2 years of tugging away at something like this. But before we dive into that, I want to just take a quick break here and just say, hey friends, I'm glad you're hanging out with us and hope you're enjoying the conversation and that this is encouraging and maybe even inspiring for you. And if this episode is resonating with you, we want to invite you to come hang out with us over on Substack. And Substack is called the Serene-ish podcast. Surprise, surprise. We post bonus reflections, we share resources, and host our listener chat space right there. And you can subscribe for free So just head over to this Serene-ish podcast.substack.com, and we'd love to have you there. And that's where we're also going to put the links of the organizations that Larissa is talking about, and maybe some links to some history if you want, just to get you started to kind of dive into some of the things that we are just touching the tip of the iceberg about the history there in Hawaii. And so would love to have you over there. So wanted to talk about some takeaways. So one of them is that in the work that you're doing, how do you hold the space for grief, what's been lost, and joy, what's being reclaimed? Because in this conversation, I'm sure listeners could hear this moments of this great joy, great relief. And then we also hear some moments that are like deeply emotional and just very, very sacred moments. So how do you hold that space for the grief, what's been lost, and joy for what's being reclaimed?
Yeah, I think a huge element or rhythm that Steve and I have had together with our two friends who are founding Inoanāiwi together, the four of us have had maybe every 2 weeks a gathering or a conversation together, and we usually open okay, this is going to sound really weird. We usually open with dad jokes.
I think that's a really good way to open.
And I feel like my ka'i, one of the friends, I think he initiated that. I can't even remember how it started, but that just started to become our thing, our way of opening.
So does each person has to bring a dad joke?
It's like if you don't come prepared with at least one dad joke, you're like you miss the assignment. It's not that formal, but it is funny. And
do you guys vote who has the best dad joke?
No, it's not even that. It's like we just roll our eyes and give a good chuckle to the jokes that deserve a chuckle. I'm the worst because I can't even remember jokes. So I'm like literally pulling Google, like, give me some good puns. So that's how we open the meeting. And then we share about, we update each other on the important things that we're doing and what Inoanāiwi means to us right now. We have deep conversations, but I feel like framing it in fun and celebration and levity is it actually has felt like a really good way to enter in, because the work that we're doing, like I said, it drudges up trauma and it drudges up like generational, historical, complicated injustice, right? And so, yes, I think laughter, friendship, jokes, I think help us counterbalance some of the heaviness and the weightiness. So there's that. But I also think each of us have made it a practice to like really listen to one another and to share from our hearts, like to share from our deepest selves, in a way that feels kind of vulnerable at times. And to like really deeply listen to one another and honor each other's sharing. And I think so together we've been able to collectively hold space for all of those things, and not be alone in that. I think that's been a huge part of it. So I'm not sure how it would have gone if it were just Steve and I, or just me, right? Like I don't think it would be a totally different experience.
Right.
But I think on my end, you had kind of been getting at this earlier in the conversation, but I'm not afraid to sit with discomfort. I think I don't know why. I think that's maybe just something that's been developed and formed in me through my relationship with Jesus, through Christian community, through other community outside of that. And so I think to me, like, being able to hold space for pain or grief or sadness, those kinds of things, I'm okay with. I think because I know that that's part of the human experience, and when we don't make space to honor those things or to listen to those things in us, they're going to come out sideways and they're going to be there anyway. So why not allow those things to move through us in community and on our own. Yeah, so I think those things. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. It's a really good balance between allowing there to be joy and laughter in the midst of the work, because joy and laughter, one, is healthy, it is healing. And these are also, like, you see the different quotes, like joy is resistance, rest is resistance. Like, so all of these things, like, it's not like you're just taking a break from the work. This is part of it, allowing yourselves to take advantage of the freedom that you can walk in joy, that you can take a moment to rest, and that there's laughter. It's a reminder, I feel, that there is still goodness. These are still things worth fighting for, worth laboring for. It's a reminder that God is still on the throne. Right. So we don't have to live our lives in despair. He's still on the throne. He sees and he hears and he knows, and he is moved to compassion, and he's still there. And so I think being able to have those times of joy and of laughter are reminders to our soul of all of that. So I love that you guys incorporate that. At the same time, you're not using that to mask the pain and the injustice. You're still allowing yourself to be able to see it and to feel it and to hold it, and aware of each one's capacity of what holding looks like for them.
Right.
And you're doing some of that individually, but you kept going back to community, doing that together. There's an ebb and flow of both of those happening. And so I love just the holistic aspect of how you guys have been navigating that. The work that you're doing is very serious, and it's sacred. It is really sacred work. But life also happens. So goats get on your back, right? In the midst of it all. How do you stay grounded and lighthearted in the middle of this mission when, like, you're trying to do these things and the goats are jumping on you? Whoever the goats may be in that particular season, like, how do you just, like, keep yourself, like, it's okay, the ghosts are running around like crazy, it's gonna be okay?
Yeah, that's so good. Honestly, I feel like I'm in a point in my life where I'm really grateful for a variety of things that I care about. And there's no one thing that overtakes everything else. I'm not obsessive, right, with like, oh, this is so important that if I can't get it done, or if I'm sick this week, like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
I don't have that anxiety anymore, or very much. I'm a big believer in, like, limits actually helping us have balance and rest and cultivate whole lives, right? And so, yes, we all need sleep, we need rest, we need laughter, we need joy, we need things that remind us viscerally at a cellular level that, like, the important work that we're doing does not actually need us all the time. So I think those are things that, I'm grateful for the disruptions. Not always. So,
Right.
there might be times that feels a little bit chaotic or stressful, but yeah, I think allowing myself to be aware that we're just a bunch of humans trying our best, and the human experience really does include surprises and disruptions and things that we didn't plan for. And then, okay, then what? Like, what am I going to do this week? Or how am I going to pivot with this team or with this person? Like, is there a way to just acknowledge, like, oh, we did not plan for this. It's a surprise. So now what?
Yep.
Right. And not just assuming that it's like a total failure or waste of time when those things happen.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. I'm just picturing, like, say you're doing the yoga, the goat yoga, that neither one of us has ever done, but we're quite amused by seeing the videos. And you doing whatever pose and the goat jumping on your back, and you end up, pushing you down, and you having to discern, okay, do I get back up into the position, or is this a sign that I'm just going to lay here and it's time to take a nap and rest a little bit? So, I love that. I love that flexibility. Well, this has been a great conversation. I've loved being able to hear about this, and I'm so glad that the listeners have got to hear about this. And again, I'm really hoping that this helps encourage people, inspire people, just activate your curiosity of what you're noticing is around you. And really at the heart of this, be encouraged. The work can be hard. but wanting people to hear the stories of being able to kind of reach to that go through the finish line, that you were able to walk with this family and that there was a celebration, and there'll be other families to be able to help. But it's before we race off to the next thing, to take that moment and embrace the joy and the victory and what it is that has happened. So do you have any final thoughts you want to leave with everyone?
I mean, I think I will just end by reiterating this theme of paying attention to what's stirring in you today. And is there an invitation there? Is there something that God is compelling you to do? And I think as long as we're doing that, like listening really deeply to our lives, then we'll the next steps will emerge, and we don't really have to like be anxious about it. But I think the next steps will come when they come.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think for me, exactly what you had just said, I think is something that I'm going to be carrying with me as such a good reminder, is that whatever it is the work that we're all doing, whether it's a nonprofit in the area of social justice, raising your kids, in your career, all of these things, whatever is the work that you're doing, is to really allow ourselves to be realistic about how serious is this actually. And there are times, yes, it is really serious, and there are deadlines that we need to make. And I'm not saying that we just become aloof about those things, but there are those moments that when the goats come running in, guys, that maybe that is the sign to just play, take a nap, watch them, let them do their thing. And there'll be times you'll know you got to like herd them up and say, nope, not today. But maybe sometimes it's okay to just say, you know what, do your thing. I'm just going to lay here, take a nap. It's all good. And we get back to the work, better than when we left off, because we've allowed joy and laughter and rest and perspective to come in. So thank you guys for joining us. We look forward to connecting with you again at the Serene-ish podcast. Visit us over on Substack, and we'll be talking to you soon, and make friends with those goats in your lives. Bye, guys.
Bye.